You share the screen and so on, go through that.
Sure.
Okay, thank you everyone. Welcome to the August 2021 board meeting for the OWASP Foundation. With me is Owen Pendlebury from the boards, Vandana Verma, Grant Ogners, and Bill Corey and Jubin as well. Martin is not present, but did notify us that he's unable to make it. Okay, so the next stage is to approval of the previous board meeting minutes. Can I get a second?
Yeah, I can second.
Okay. Does anyone have any issues where they want to discuss from this previous meeting notes? Okay, if not, then I'll go through the order where I see board members. So firstly, Owen.
Yep.
Jubin.
Jubin.
I said yes. Can you guys not hear me?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jubin. Bill.
Yes.
Vandana.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
And that's a yes from myself. Okay. Next, Andrew will walk us through the reports for the month.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I do see Tom joining us. So after I finish mine, hi, Tom. I'm going to make Tom a co-host right now so that you can take over the screen when it's time. Okay, so we had a reasonably small month of increase compared to last month, about 80 odd members, but this is a normal month for us. But we're still at about above 4,600 members. We're on track to getting 5,000 members this year, which is good. We've had an average number of chapter meetings, but because we're actually not forcing anyone to hold a chapter meeting through any programs or initiatives, that's actually a healthy number. It's 116% of normal. We've had a significant decrease in the number of RSVPs, but the RSVPs that are measured by Meetup include events, and we haven't held any major public events. This will go up dramatically when we do the 20th anniversary next month, because the RSVPs for that will likely be in here too. We've had approximately the same number of people to our website. We're going to be releasing the OWASP Top 10 next month, so I would imagine that next month we'll see a healthy boost. The year-to-date net income, I will let Tom talk about that in his report. The main one that I'll point out is that we're starting to go up, which is really good. That's actually rather nice. There's reasons for that. The milestones completed, the expenses policy is below. We actually do have a motion, which I want to read into, like the motion for Martin's confidence has passed, 6-0. So I'll get that read into the minutes. If you give me a few minutes after whilst Tom is doing his, I'll bring that up. The audited financials, Tom will talk about that. We're working on our corporate sponsorship drive. We've not had as great a number of people joining, so I'd love to have the board reach out to their contacts and bring some corporate sponsors to us. We will continue to market to the folks that we've been talking to, but also previous sponsors and members.
So point on that. So I did ask the board previously, and they can speak for themselves, but it seems that there were a few that were interested. I don't know how far that has gone, or the leads have been worked through and processed. But we do know that multiple board members had leads for the foundation on that.
Kelly is on vacation this week, so I will get her to respond when she gets back next week, let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, like being honest, like a lot of the vendors that we, that I would have contacts in have been put into our leads anyway over the years. So if I was contacting them, they just say that they've either already been contacted or there's probably very few that aren't on the list if there are any,
Okay.
because we've used them for all the conferences.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, there might be sponsors as opposed to corporate members, but
Yeah, but they're still on our leads. So
Yeah.
like if they're sponsors, we should still reach out to them to see whether they are interested. But that should come from the likes of Kelly rather than say us, if you know what I mean. If they've been involved in the invitation already.
Yep. So no worries. I'll get Kelly to actually provide a report when she gets back, which is going to be next week. The email cleanup program.
Did we miss one point, like the election?
Oh, sorry. Yes, it was announced on time. We actually have the exact number of candidates right now. Dawn, do you want to just give a quick update on that?
We have 5 candidates right now, we need 4 seats, so there'll be actually an election at this point. One more reminder goes out at the end of the week.
Yeah. Dawn confirms their membership on the last possible day. So if you've got people that you think would be a good fit for the board, please reach out to them. I want the community to have a wide choice of candidates so that the best people can be chosen.
When's the last date for this?
August 30th.
The 30th.
Okay.
Okay. Harold had to pause the membership email cleanup, and then last week he was out for personal reasons. I think, Harold, do you just want to give people a quick update on where the membership cleanup program is at? Has it completed?
It is in the same state as when I left. I need to get back to it. There's an error in actually turning off the accounts. I'll have to get back to it.
Is aside from sort of taking time out for personal reasons, which is fine and understandable, is there any issue that's underlining the reason why we paused the cleanup?
Yes, there was an error in the actual deactivating of the account, the suspending of the account. I have to get back to it to figure out the reasoning and fix it.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I'm currently working on the BCP plan. That should be ready in its draft form. We need to run through the scenarios and make sure that they're valid before we actually sign off on it. It's primarily to make sure that if anything disastrous occurs, we can continue. It is not a DR plan. This is not designed to be, we'd lose a staff member for whatever reason, through resignation or whatever. It's literally what would cause the foundation to fail if we didn't have this plan. And so we're just going to go through a couple of those scenarios. My other main feature is, because the fundraising is part of the 2020 operating plan for this year, we need to get fundraising off the go. To do that, we need an annual report. In fact, when we were doing the EIDL loan application yesterday, we needed an annual report for 2019, and we didn't have one. So this is, again, another reason why we're going to reinstitute the annual report process. We are thinking about doing the September lifetime membership drive, kicking off on the 1st. It is the only time that I intend to do it. I think lifetimes are very well priced at the current moment, and I think maybe a 10% discount is all that's required here. I don't think it'll be very many people. It's literally going to be along the lines of those who are on the fence about getting lifetime membership will pay us $450 instead of $500. It is an investment in the future, and quite frankly, I don't think we should ever discount lifetimes outside of special events such as this. We've got some stuff coming up. Harold, how's the events policy and projects policy tracking with the project review team?
We need to schedule a meeting to go over it. Right now, there's a number of people on vacation or unavailable.
Okay. Do you think it'll be ready in time for the board prep call in September, which is halfway through the month? So 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now at most.
They should be, yes. Most
Thank
everybody
you.
has commented on the policies they do. We just haven't been able to meet to resolve some of the issues.
Yep. The other one is the last part of the policy review reform that I wanted to complete was travel. We're not traveling at the moment, so this is not urgent. I would just like it to be in policy by the time that we get going with travel again. For us as a board and as staff members, the earliest that we're likely to travel is for apps at Cali next year. And the most likely time for travel is actually in June next year to Dublin. And I would like to have the travel policy in place by then. It won't be very complicated. It is literally along the lines of travel is not recommended unless absolutely required. And if it is required, here is how it's proved. The community will fund travel through sponsorships rather than to rely upon expenses. If anyone wants to work with me on the travel policy, please do raise your hand. I'd love to be having a board champion for travel. If anyone's interested in that and working on that with me. Again, the events committee hasn't really come to fruition. At a set point, we may need to just simply give up on the events committee completely and just leave it as is. It's the obvious missing component from the other committees, but while we have dysfunction with some of the other committees, it may be worthwhile just putting this on ice forever and ever and come back to it. Grant, how are we going on the mission statement?
Sorry, Andrew, your volume is very soft to me. What was that again?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just pull this forward. Is that better? The question I asked was how is the my goodness, the mission statement going?
So we've had a lot of feedback on it, and it's been very positive. There've been a number of contentious items that I put in there that we've had a lot of discussion around, specifically around certifications. But the way it is right now, I haven't seen any comments. So I've made some changes to it. I haven't seen any comments on the changes or any further comments on the other components of it for a couple of weeks now. So I'm going to push it out one more time to the members, ask them to take a look, and then consider it something worth voting on.
Okay, we're about to do the 990 for the IRS. I'd love to have an updated mission statement for that. Do you think it might be in, like Tom, when's the 990 going to be submitted? You're saying that it was due soon.
It's due November 15th. I was going to give an update on this, so I'm hoping to have it completely done by the end of September. So we're a month and a half early.
Okay, we may not have the mission statement finished by then. Do you reckon we could have it for the next board meeting, Grant?
The 20th anniversary, so yes.
Okay, great. Look forward to seeing that put forward. Thank you. Okay, I just want to go through just really quickly. I do have a number of motions that I'm looking for sponsors. I will let you, hopefully you've had a chance to read them and pick them. I won't go through them right now. There are some important ones and there are less important ones, but again, I'm looking for the board to be involved in the motions they champion. I think that's something that Sharif has asked for, and I think that's actually a really good idea. Lastly, one of the things here is that we have been addressing the membership list. I'm working with Dawn and Harold to make sure that the membership list is accurate. We identified a problem with lengthy end dates. This wouldn't have stopped anyone from voting. It may have allowed people who aren't financial members at the moment voting, but I don't think that we've got anybody who, it was easy enough to identify them is what I'm trying to get at. So before we actually go and provide a list to the voters of like who's eligible, we will be validating that everybody who's eligible will get a vote and everybody who's not eligible will not get a vote, and that will happen behind the scenes. This backs up the motion the board passed earlier this year. We want to make sure that everybody who could be a candidate is a candidate. Everybody who's not eligible to be a candidate, we can at least identify that and we will work with that. So just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. Last one, I would love for someone to work with me. I think it's one of the motions that I've got above there on renaming the honorary membership to distinguished lifetime member. I think that would actually be a really good idea. It would then allow us to, I've actually drafted a PR for it. If someone wants to adopt that as a motion, that'd be fantastic, and work with me to get that through. With that, I'm going to hand over to Tom, and I'm going to bring up the e-vote that will be read into minutes and put that into the agenda.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. I'm going to grab the screen. Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Is it big enough? Excel sometimes is a bit of an issue.
No, it's good.
Okay. Well, I'll start off with just a couple of updates. So as Andrew mentioned, the 2020-990, I supplied all the information to the CPA about a month ago. It's in process and review at this point. The numbers will be the same as what's in the annual report. I have to put some charts together for Andrew, which I'll have done before the end of this week. The 990 is due November 15th, but as I mentioned earlier, I'd love to have it a draft back in the next couple of weeks to let the board look at it for a week. And then, you know, by the end of September, have Andrew sign it and get it submitted to the IRS so that we can jump into the budget season and not worry about last year's tax return. So that's my hope. Andrew had mentioned about audited numbers. So we audit every 3 years per the bylaws. So the next one won't be until 2023 for next year, for 2022. But the numbers have been submitted to the IRS, so we're effectively closed for 2020. Further update, I'm sure everybody has seen, and we got the final notification back from the Small Business Association that our PPP loan for almost $113,000 was fully forgiven. So we got that in August. So just to be appropriate, I will do the reversal of the liability in August, which will reduce our expenses for payroll by almost $113,000 for this year. As Andrew noted, we finally got access to an account for the EIDL loan. Andrew updated what he could. I have to go in and upload some documents, although Andrew, I sent you a note. It's a multi-factor authentication.
Oh.
So when I go in, it's going to send you a code to your email. So we'll just coordinate that and then get that all done. So that's where we are right now with some updates from the finance side. Does anybody have any questions before I get into our finances? Okay, not hearing any. I've got the balance sheet up here for review. So as you can see, we still have almost $1.2 million in the bank as of the end of July. So we're holding steady with our cash. The receivables are about where they were last month. Last month they were in June, they were about 186. So we're continuing to collect. Other than that, we have a little bit of prepaid for some of the events, but not much, as you can see. What's in here for prepaid expenses, meetup, and our insurances for the year. So in total, we have about $1.5 million in assets. Our liabilities continue to hold. We only had about $30,000 worth of payables at the end of the month. This is the almost $113,000 for the PPP that I'll reverse, which means it'll reduce our payroll expenses. And what I really wanted to point out here is our deferred revenue keeps growing. That's a good thing because that means that Kelly and the team and everybody else is out selling for our upcoming events. And as you can see, the 20th anniversary, we've already got almost 61,000 sold for sponsorships, which is not quite double what we had budgeted. So we're on a good track with our revenue and our sales at this point. And as you can see, our equity is just under $1 million. The net income year to date is a negative almost 125. And when I show you the board summary, you'll see that that's way under what we budgeted through 7 months. So with that, I'll take any questions on the balance sheet. But it's good, it's strong, and your largest liabilities are deferred revenue for events that we're going to have. So from a nonprofit perspective, that's what you should be seeing, is few liabilities and higher assets.
Hey, Tom, sorry, I have in my notes to ask you this question, and I thought I asked in the last board meeting, so apologies.
No worries.
Did we get that there was another loan that we applied for? That was kind of like the 2021 version of the PPP loan. Did we get that, or did we hear back from that?
So and that's a very good question, Juben. By the way, congratulations.
Thank you.
So the PPP had two versions. There was PPP 1 that we applied for, and we got the 113,000. They came up with a second set of stimulus called PPP 2. We were in the middle of applying for it, and they shut the portal down. So the application never finished. So we didn't get in on that. But what we are in on, and we've been working on for the last few months, is the economic injury disaster loan, which is a true loan. And we're gonna work for 150 or less, because if we do that, then it's much less administration. There's no true personal guarantees, although Andrew will be signing for it. But the organization is obligated for that, and that has a very low interest rate of 2.75, and it can be paid off over 30 years. So that's $500 or $600 a month. And the reason we're doing that is so that we have $150,000 to prepay for any conference expenses that may come up, and not touch our operating cash to do that. And then, when we have it and the world hopefully gets back to normal in a year or so, we'll end up paying it off when we get back to in-person conferences. So did that hopefully answer your question? Yes,
it did. Thank you.
Okay,
yeah.
Sharif?
There's one other one as well, which is the employee retention credit that firm was going to seek for us. How's that going?
Yeah, so I need to catch up with the partner or the manager that I'm dealing with. He's out on paternity leave. So I just saw another notice today that not only can you go backwards, but if you do it after June, it's open until the end of the year. So I have to get them some information for the ERC, the employee retention credit, and see if we qualify. And that could be another, opportunity to reduce some expenses.
Thank you. Sorry, Sharif.
Yeah, I noticed on the event side, is there an update with regards to APSA Kelly?
I don't have one for you at the moment. I will get Kelly to give you an update via the global board next week.
So
okay.
To answer your question, Sharif, there's nothing on the books right now, so we've not prepaid anything. There's been no sales for future sponsorships for APSA Cali right now. Hopefully
okay.
There will be.
Yeah, the reason why I said that is just given the time of the year now, it's a bit late.
Yes.
So I just wanted to double check where, if the answer is no, fine, but it's more of if we can draw a conclusion shortly, because even if we say it's going, then we are also in a fighting mode, because at the moment that would also be quite a late event, and then folks would need to work quite hard to be able to put up a successful event from that time.
My concerns are that with LOSCON, we've already struggled to get sponsors on board because they don't even allow their people to travel at the moment. And I think APSA Cali at this point in time, I think we would have to see the decline in Delta, and then the time becomes very tight. Quite frankly, I'd like to see the performance of LOSCON before we go ahead and approve APSA Cali completely. It may just be that they run it as a virtual event. We can find some money behind the couch for that. But at the end of the day, I don't know that a physical event may be possible at this point.
So to look at last con, to your point, we've got 23,000 in deferred revenue, and we prepaid about 15. So right now it's showing a positive. I know that Kelly's working on it because I talked to her about it. To your point, Sharif, yes, on the operational logistics side of us putting it on, yes, there'll be a lot of work. From a sponsorship perspective, in the next couple of months, people are working on their budgets for next year. So it would be appropriate to start inquiring to see if we can get into sponsors and see if they've got any funds, to sponsor, even if it's a online event, just to keep it going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's my 2 cents on AppSec Cali.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on the balance sheet? If not, I'll move over to the P&L. Okay, not hearing any. So here's the board summary, and you all have a copy of it. But as you can see, for the month, we did about 81,000 in revenue. We had about 87 in expense. So we showed a negative 6,000 combined, although there wasn't any activity in BZW. But our budget was a negative 36. So we're actually $30,000 better because we were a little under in expense, but we were over in revenue for the month. The quarter is the same because July is the first month of Q3. And this is where I tend to focus, is on the year to date. So as you can see, we've recognized about 542,000 of revenue against a budget of just under 436. So we're ahead by about 106. The good thing is memberships holding strong, conference revenues right online, donations are doing well. These other two we knew were going to be when we budgeted them. Some work to get them going, the grants and the trademark, but I know Andrew's, working through the trademark aspect. So hopefully we'll start to see a little traction there. From an expense perspective, everything's under budget with the exception of G&A, which has been for a while. And as I explained last month, it's legal's over and the Insperity benefits taxes are an issue. But what's going to mitigate that is, we have an open position that we budgeted for that we're not spending on right now, plus the almost $13,000 expense reduction will cover that and then some from the PPP forgiveness. So at this point right now versus our budget, again, there's the 124.8 that we're showing as a negative, but we budgeted through the year to be 250, almost 258 of a deficit. So we're 133,000 ahead. If you add to that the 113, we're about $246,000 better in net income than we had budgeted for. And to look a little forward towards the end of the year, we budgeted about $100,000 deficit. If everything holds, and right now, we've got Australia that didn't happen, but the 20th anniversary is much better than we expected. That $113,000 forgiveness may get us to actually, hopefully, a positive or at least a break even for the year, which would be phenomenal in the current environment. So the numbers are looking very good 7 months through the year, and looking forward a little bit, they're looking strong to the end of 2021. So with that, I'll take any questions on the P&L.
If there are no questions, I just want to highlight that we're getting into budget season. If the board has initiatives that they wish to have funded and programs that they wish to have enabled, now is the time to start approaching how much it's going to cost and how much you're going to earn. And so we can get it put into the budget for next year. We're also looking at creating the operating plan for 2022. One of my major focuses for 2022 is a customer experience and making sure that everything we do is actually as productive as possible. But that's not strategic. That is literally operational in nature. So if you've got programs that you wish to have or that you've been voted in to actually get done, it is time to start thinking about how to get it budgeted, how much it's going to cost, what could it bring in. So start thinking about those things. We want to bring the budget for people to vote on in early January with the new board. And once we know who the new board is, I want them to be involved in crafting it as well, so that we can make sure that they're not wasting their first year for their initiatives to get going as well. But if you've got things you want done, now's the time.
Okay, Andrew, there's a couple of things I wanted to ask. So for me, for example, the main items that I had is actually doesn't cost money, it costs effort. So the fundraising, for example, earlier in the year, we made an effort to make sure that, I believe it's called Gold Star, has OWASP registered there, and that anyone can do fundraising. So right now, a lot of the things that we do on YouTube, for example, anyone now on Facebook or YouTube or other platforms that provide fundraising, now anyone can do a fundraising event for OWASP on behalf of OWASP, and it will go straight to OWASP.
Yep.
And so for me, it's more of, can you prioritize this, or can someone prioritize this to look into how they can do this?
Yeah. So essentially with the fundraising, the reason why we're getting the annual report done is to update GuideStar and also Charity Navigator with the latest information, but also so we can actually get out there and start promoting to the actual membership and leaders that they should be using Amazon Smile, YouTube, if they've got access to a sizable audience, because they may not be able to run fundraisers until they get to a certain size, whereas we can do that on our channel, no problems.
Yeah, but to be clear, you can do that now. It's not that you need the annual report to be able to do this, even though it might give us a higher boost. As of today, people can do the fundraising. You don't need to do all the other stuff to be able to get that done.
Agreed. I just want to get some of this back end stuff done, such as the BCP plan and making sure the elections go off and making sure that the the fundraising basics are in place. That stuff, to my mind, isn't going to take that much more time, and we can get going on the fundraising in the last few months of this year. As far as I'm concerned, we do need to concentrate on fundraising. It's the last element of the operating plan that hasn't been executed as yet, and it needs to happen. We've done almost all of the other bits. This is one of the elements that needs to be completed.
Okay, good.
Okay. And thank you for raising it, because quite frankly, it is one of those things that we need to get in front of the community. I want to make sure that when we do the keynote, when I introduce the actual conference, that essentially we actually do talk about fundraising in very particular form, and we encourage people to make donations during the actual interstitials and other things. So I want to make sure that we always highlight the fact that you should be donating, if you can afford to do so, to OWASP.
Andrew,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I actually didn't know we had an Amazon Smiles donation avenue. Are there anything other than Amazon Smile and YouTube? And we should probably make an effort to announce that to the community more often.
Yeah, I'm trying to get together a monthly posting of membership benefits, and one of those other ones is in that same post. I want to make sure that if we get things, for example, partners who are providing discounts, or to use Amazon Smile, here is the link, here is our affiliate link for blah blah blah. I want to make sure that those things are actually made visible to our members on a regular basis. And so, yes, part of the fundraising effort is to communicate with the membership. Here are the discounts, here is our member benefits, and here is the way you can contribute and donate to OWASP. But yes.
So yeah, if the board has any additional items for us to go through and to discuss, then and propose, then we should do that. Outside of that, are there any other items for us before we go through the? Oh, we haven't read out the remaining motion, the remaining e-votes.
Well, this is part of the new business, so quite frankly, I'm just getting ready for that. That's all. Sorry.
Okay. So the first item of new business, although we used to put that in, that doesn't matter, is we had an e-vote for a vote of confidence for Martin. Martin had several extenuating circumstances with family and so forth, but as a result, it led to the vote of confidence due to limited attendance. So this was a vote of confidence for Martin, which the boards unanimously voted in favor.
I'll add this to the
yeah.
I'll add this to the minutes or the agenda. I'll go back to here, and you can take over. Or do you want to share your screen if you've got something?
No, that's fine. Please continue scrolling. Okay, so the next item on the new business, the other remaining e-vote was a motion to offer a corporate membership discount rate. Again, 6 votes for nay and 1 motion abstained.
Yep, so that did not pass. We've just read the upcoming confidence motion. That's now, I'll replace it with this. Okay,
yeah.
The expenses policy.
Yeah, so these are the new, this is the one new business point. Sorry, I was going to read the motion first.
Oh, I see. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, it's okay. So this is the motion to approve the expenses policy. This is sponsored by Grant and seconded by Bill. In actual fact, instead of me reading it out, Bill, can you walk us through the motion that you're sponsoring?
Well, sure.
Sorry,
So,
Grant.
yeah, I mean, Grant's the main sponsor. I don't know if he wants to do it or I can.
Well, Jubin, I'm on my mobile phone. If you're happy to do it, as you were involved in the process, please go ahead. I have read through it. I'm quite happy with the changes.
Grant, I think you meant Bill. That was Bill's voice you were hearing, not mine.
Sorry, Bill.
And no worries. Go for it, Bill.
Yeah, so this motion is to update our expenses policy. There was quite a bit of community feedback that was provided. The expenses policy reflects that. It's trying to achieve a better balance between what's it's the balance between wanting to allow our chapters to be able to spend money in a way that supports the foundation's mission, and also in a way not be overly permissive where they can, spend like tons of money and just kind of waste money. We've had problems going both ways, and so this hopefully achieves a better balance of all of that. Hopefully you've all taken a look and feel the same way. That's why Grant and I are sponsoring it. I don't know, is there any questions about it in general?
No, not for me.
Bill, not a direct question on what's being proposed. I think everything you have written is great. Do we want to set a time to revisit this in 6 months or a year to see if it's actually working the way we expect it to be working?
I don't know that we'd want to write that. And I think all these
Agreed.
policies, ideally, we'd revisit them on an annual basis to make sure. But this is just out of the gate trying to just do some heavy uplifting.
Yeah, I wasn't proposing that we write it in here.
Okay.
I just offhand, specifically for this one, because it has caused a lot of heartache for a lot of different chapters in the past. Do we want to, just as a board, agree to revisit?
Yeah, I think the ideal scenario would be, because the foundation itself, the staff are going to be the ones fielding the expenses. As they get expenses that seem to be like, are we sure we really want to be spending our money in this way? At that point, we would actually then talk about it and update the policy, like ad hoc, as these sort of corner, edge cases come in and we realize maybe we didn't cover everything.
Just a quick note, Jibin, that's a really good idea, and it should have happened with the previous expense system as well, because that was an experiment that never got looked back on, and it was actually problematic for much of its existence. Now, I agree that you need to do that, but the reality is we have been operating the expense system under COVID restrictions like this. It's been working. We've put aside $64,000 this year. In other years where there's more in-person meetings, the board should make a greater allowance. I think that's actually a really good idea for the 2023 budget cycle, is to understand how things are looking and if we need to top up this or seek more funds, that sort of thing. I certainly do encourage the board to introduce motions, and you're free to introduce a motion or any activity as a board member. I shouldn't be submitting this many motions is what I'm trying to get at. As a result of, if this passes, the COVID restrictions will become much shorter because it is essentially the same expense policy as the COVID restrictions has actually implemented. I will be removing anything that is to do with expenses pretty much from the temporary COVID restrictions.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick question? And I haven't read the entire thing, so forgive me if it is in here, but is there an audit process from staff to validate that there's, oh, well, sorry, I'm just after scrolling down, misuse, abuse, of fraud.
Yes.
So are we validating everything? Are we, like, why are we actually policing this? Because I completely agree that it seems open and fair, but there is those abuse cases that like that there are a lot of people that are in our community that tend to break things. So I just wanted to make sure that we're not.
So the reality is that this has always been the case. There is actually a compliance element of the IRS that they can audit us on. If they find an expense that is actually not correct, we would actually be placing that responsibility on the person who claimed it. But the staff will still be applying a filter. And if there is something that's not quite right, we will bring it up. If there's something that's really severe, this for the first time actually provides a policy mechanism for the staff to raise it with the board and actually take some action. So this is actually better than the existing policy in terms of it's now clear that the people submitting the expenses are responsible for claiming, but there is actually a way for us to address abuse. So I think it's got a balance between trust, but also with the lower limits, it means that there are going to be less arguments about parking versus not parking versus, you know, somebody trying to claim, like, for example, we had an example of a chapter leader wanting to do podcasting. This provides the possibility for them to do something very different than just claiming a chapter expense that's unrelated to running a chapter. So I think it's a lot more flexible. It provides a lot more possibilities for people to do mission, but it also places the responsibility upon the individuals to claim correctly.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I'd just like to understand further, and it could be outside of this meeting, if no problem, just what the policing element will be. So, like, say for instance, if say I was OWASP Dublin, and with the two leaders approved it, and so on. But what happened if we kept on approving each other's expense multiple times and stuff like that? And yeah, just probably, it probably sounds silly, but I would just like to understand how much staff are going to be involved in policing those smaller amounts, because yes, they're smaller amounts, but they do add up over time, especially given our financial constraints.
Absolutely. So if it doesn't fall within the fair and reasonable, they have to get pre-approval, and that was the staff's opportunity to just validate that it's correct before they actually get some approval. If they're doing something like, for example, holding, like we've had plenty of abuse in the past where people have held chapter leader meetings at Black Hat and tried to claim them. That's sort of an area that we couldn't have prevented in the past. And there was a lot of arguments about what was fair and reasonable. And I don't think that the staff should get into a lot of those arguments, but there's a greater clarity here as to what is permitted and what is not permitted. And therefore, if it does go out of, like, for example, one of our best leaders was doing something for the foundation, and he claimed tried to claim a travel expense unrelated to his chapter, and I had to reject it under the policy that was standing. I would love to be able to say, if you're meeting with the government promoting OWASP, there should be a way of doing that, but it requires pre-approval. We've got a way of doing that now. In the past, it was just, I'm rejecting your expense. And there was a lot of disagreement about, was that a valid thing to do? And I think it hurts our relationships with the leaders when they can't do things. They just need to apply for pre-approval. That's as simple as it gets.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's a good way, a really good way forward.
Yeah, and I do agree with Jubin that we should review this and how did it operate? What challenges did the staff have in enforcing pre-approvals? And how much did we get through in terms of expenses? We're in a very low expense environment right now. As it picks up, I'm expecting it to pick up in many parts of the world. What does it look like? We need to know, and we need to adjust. I don't think we should ever say that policy is fixed in stone forever. I think, let's make it right.
Well, I guess that's the same for everything, any policy. We should have a review process.
Okay.
Yeah, and one more thing to note here as well is the restricted gifts clauses, right? Because for folks who are worried about donations, that or specific causes for projects and so forth, that there's still a mechanism to go through that. Correct, Andrew?
Yes. Because restricted donations require a bit more effort. My goodness, Grant, that's an amazing beard. I love it. Because restricted donations have more of an overhead and require accounting staff to actually make allowances for it, and we need to be able to provide answers to how much is left, there is an admin overhead. If donations are made just to the general expenses pool, we won't be taking that off the top.
Yeah. And so there's a mechanism to still continue to have that, which is good.
Yep.
Okay.
My goal is for everything that requires an admin overhead to be no more than 15%. And to do that, we need operational efficiency. And where we can get operational efficiencies, such as it's just dumped into a general pool and that's just part of our overheads of operating it. I don't want to charge people for that money, but they can't then claim it as, this is mine. This is for everyone. So if they don't want to have the admin overhead, please do an unrestricted donation. It's much easier for us to handle.
Okay.
Okay.
Are there any further questions with regards to this motion before we go for a vote? All right, going once, going twice. Thanks, everyone. So in order where I see folks, so firstly, Jubin.
Yes. Sorry, it took me a second to find my mute button.
That's okay. Bill?
Yes.
Grant?
Yes.
Owen?
Yes.
Sandana?
Yes.
And myself is a yes as well. Martin is absent.
With a 6 out of 0, that is actually a pass. This is a policy change, so it would have required 5 positive votes. And so thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, so now moving on to comments, announcements, and other business. Okay, what are the items to discuss and who's leading them?
Okay, so I'm not looking for a discussion at this point. I'm looking for people to sponsor and second so this discussion can start. And for that board member to work with me on any motions, or those board members to work with me on motions. So the first one is e-vote to rename lifetime honorary members to distinguished lifetime members. There is a PR for that, but it will require a 2/3 majority. So I'm looking for substantial board support for this. Is anyone interested in being the sponsor?
I can sponsor it.
Yep.
And I can second it, Andrew. I went through it. There's some more spell checks and stuff. Would you like me to do a PR against your PR or do it in the same branch?
Do it in the same branch. Just I'll accept it as a merge. I mean, if you're going to be sponsoring and seconding, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that.
Okay. Do you have a timeline that you want this done?
We need to have it done so that the 20th anniversary lifetime honorary members can be
Sure.
correctly named during the 20th anniversary. So probably the week leading up to that.
Okay. I'll second. I don't know if I'll second both the PRs, this one and the next one.
Okay, the consent package.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put you as the lead for the consent package. Grant, I think you were saying that you've actually read the consent package.
Yeah, but to be clear, the way the consent packages would work is that you would just sort of deliver things ahead of time, so a week or two prior to the board, keep it in the board meeting, and then it gets processed without discussion. So it doesn't need a second or well, just like the what is it? Just like the additional things, like the prior board meeting minutes. It'll just be brought up during the board's meeting. Can I get a second for the consent package? And then it doesn't get discussed. It's either yay or nay, but you can work on it ahead of time. But I don't think you need a second for this, as long as it is truly what it's intended for. If you need actually someone to sponsor, that's a motion. If it's something that is like a routine change that is not significant, then that's fine.
It is literally spelling mistakes.
Yeah, it doesn't need anything. So yeah, put it part of the consent package, give it to the board ahead of time. We'll vote on it on the September board meeting.
Yeah. So if everyone who wanted to actually work on that just contacts Jubin, so we can actually make sure that all of the spelling mistakes are dealt with, because I think Jubin, you're saying that there is actually additional spelling mistakes. So let's get it reviewed properly.
Yeah, I mean, I've only found three more
Okay.
from what you fixed, but I'm not done going through all of it.
Okay. No worries. The next one is a sponsor and second for to prioritize the chapter policy instead of the handbook. The bylaws actually mention the handbook, which doesn't currently exist in a final form, but the policy does. And I think that's what it actually means. So this one is a very small change. It really just changes the chapter leader handbook, which does not exist, to the chapter policy, which does and has been approved by the board. So anyone interested in doing this one?
I'll be happy to sponsor.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. I will touch base with you folks. And the last one is the election policy. One of the problems we've faced, and Dawn is such a trooper, it's amazing. She actually wasted part of her Sunday getting this done on time per the election timeline. I'd like this to come to a vote in September so that if September 30 actually ends up on the weekend, she doesn't work on the weekend, because there's a lot more effort involved on the 30th than there is the 15th of August. What this does is it actually says that the election timeline stands, but if it falls on a weekend, then the nearest business day is the one that's actually used. So if it falls on a Saturday, we announce it on the Friday. This will actually allow people to see it when they're working rather than maybe miss it on the weekend, because this concerns board stuff, like making sure that it's sufficient candidates actually apply to become a board member and people vote. I do believe this is quite important to get right, but also to help our staff not have to work on weekends. So could I have a second and a sponsor, please? Sorry, a sponsor and a second.
I'm happy to sponsor.
Okay. Who wants to second if possible?
I can second it.
Okay, I heard Van Dana first. Okay.
I just have one quick question, Andrew. When this, if you're gonna change this for this year, because the voting gets, a candidate is over, it falls on a weekend. The election ends on a weekend. So, yeah, so just FYI, if you waiting for next year, but it does end on a weekend this year also.
Okay, so Sharif and Bandana, I'll work with you. Does it apply for this cycle, or do we actually put it off to next year? That's something that can be modified in the motion as to when it takes effect. I personally would like to see it take effect immediately, but obviously that changes the timeline ever so slightly.
Sure.
I don't think the timeline's effect would be significant for the community. So from that perspective, I think that should be fine.
Okay.
Because it's literally from the weekend to the next working day.
Very good. And that's all I had for you this time.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. So I'll motion to adjourn the board meeting. Can I get a second?
I can second.
Okay. Thank you, Owen. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.
Yes.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
No worries.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Hey,
Hey.
could you
Thank you
stop
for-
recording, please?
Yes, I will do that now.